pet peeve. When you ask questions, especially to scientists, and you ask why is the sun yellow, they'll tell you all kinds of questions saying, well, the sun is yellow because the light that refracts from the sun looks yellow to our eyes because of the concept of wavelength, etc., etc. That's not why the sun is yellow, that's how the sun is yellow. We, including myself, have grown up in a world where we ask questions of why and have been trained to accept questions of how. Welcome back. You join us again. I think this is number 7 for Kesher, Saital, Derech Hashem, and we have got to page 39, and which is section 1, chapter 2, point 2. And we're now talking about the purpose of creation. You can't just jump into this one. You're going to have to, if you haven't listened to the previous ones, it's definitely important that you roll back at least to the previous one at the beginning of this chapter, which is only 1 point. But it's probably just half an hour every time on that. It would be best if you started from the beginning. You don't need the text, but it would greatly be of value if you were looking at the text, or had a printout, or even best yet, actually have a copy of the Sefer. It would make massive improvements for you to be able to highlight, cross-reference, in page notes. And we're about to start the idea. We said last time that the purpose of absolutely everything that was created was only to bring into existence a creature who could derive pleasure from God the way that he intended. That's it. Everything. Remember when you made the blue-orange? If you're just jumping in here, I don't know what that means. Remember when you made the blue-orange? I didn't tell you to make friction and gravity and mass and density and spatial rules of physics. You did all that instantaneously in your mind in order to be able to bring up a blue-orange on a table in that room, which was the visualization exercise. Everything that's in that room was only there for the blue-orange, the friction, the gravity, everything. The friction stops the blue-orange falling off the table, the gravity keeps the orange centered as opposed to floating off the table. The concept of light and photons and wavelengths to make the colour blue, you all did. The concept of plant life to make the stem and the petals at the top, you did. I didn't tell you create the concept of cellulose and lignin and pigments and blossom. I didn't tell you to make, squamous cells or anything like that. And, chlorophylls. That's a complicated thing. Chlorophylls, move electrons around and stuff like that. I didn't tell you to do that. You just did it. So too, God put all the background data there for the purpose. Everything in creation has purpose. It's not purposeless. Don't believe anyone when they tell you it's purposeless. It ain't. Also, pet peeve. When you ask questions, especially to scientists, and you ask why is the sun yellow, they'll tell you all kinds of questions saying, well, the sun is yellow because the light that refracts from the sun looks yellow to our eyes because of the concept of wavelength, etc., etc. That's not why the sun is yellow. That's how the sun is yellow. We, including myself, have grown up in a world where we ask questions of why and have been trained to accept questions of how. I didn't ask why a strawberry is red. Oh, that's because the light that's hitting it is being absorbed and the only wavelength that's popping out is what we consider to be red because of its long wavelength. That's how a strawberry is red. The question is why. Why is a philosophical, theological question. It should not be answered by scientists, just like I guess now shouldn't be answered by rabbis. Let's say ask a scientist. How it's red. How it's red is how it's red. The question is why it's red. Why is a more important question and a more important answer generally than how, unless you're making an aeroplane and you need to know exactly how to do it for life and death reasons, obviously. But generally, why do we want to fly is a more important question than how do we fly. How comes afterwards. Why do you want to fly? Because it's a good idea to get it out. So we'll work it out. Don't accept how answers to why questions. This is a vital concept. The question that is sitting at us now is why did God create the universe? Answer, because he wished to bestow his good to something other than him. Now remember, it has to be his good. We discussed that last time. It can't be any other good, otherwise it would be a bad good. It's not only as good as his good, that means he wouldn't be doing it perfectly, and that's a problem because he's perfect. We've got a massive problem. We've got a massive, massive problem. Massive problem. If the good that God wants to give is from him, it's actually access to him, as we said, and you've got to align yourself with him to get that good. How can you, as a finite creature, get in touch with something which isn't finite and isn't a creature? He's not finite, and he's not being undergone creation. It's impossible. I can't get... what he's going to do is give you access rights to be able to get close to him. Now here's the problem. If he were just to grant you those access rights, you would feel as if you're getting a charitable dollar. Giving you in, which is fine, I'll take the money. It works, it captures in the bank. There's a problem. If God were just to bestow himself to you, gratis or predestined, you wouldn't feel as good about it as if you would earn that right yourself. Think about it. I would run GEN, which is Jewish Education in Manchester, right? Let's say I'm going to have a mass mail out to all the people in Manchester, say there's a new course starting. 6,000 envelopes being stuffed. Yeah? So there's two people that come to my office. One says, oh, I'll stuff envelopes for you for free because I love doing charitable work. Right? So it's an hour. It just stuffs envelopes with a flyer. It puts it's all prepaid envelopes. Doesn't have to do anything. But I need the flyers in the envelopes to post them, right? Another guy comes and says, charge you £10 an hour for my time. And I agree. I say, great, I need you for 1 hour. I'll give you £10, stuff envelopes, I'll pay you when I'm done. Okay. An hour goes by. At the end of the hour, the guy that worked completely voluntarily comes up to me and I say, you know what, Steve, thanks so much for your time. Here's £10. I wanted to thank him. I didn't have to do that. He goes, oh, that's fair. I'm really not necessary. I was just, oh, no. I insist. So he puts £10 in his pocket, finish. Okay. The guy that I hired verbally with a contract to work for £10 per hour as a kablan, as like a working individual, I turn around to him and go, you know what? You should give more charity in your life. I'm not going to pay the £10. Consider it a charitable donation from your end. Yeah, it's a charity. It's a registered charity, UK, England, Wales. It's a registered charity. Oh yeah, give £10 to charity. When's the last time you done that? That's not the reason I came here to stuff envelopes. It was a £10. No, he takes me to Bastion. Takes me to a Jewish court. They extract the £10 from me. It's his £10. We came to an agreement. I didn't like it. I think you should get. No, they said you took it on. You have to pay him £10. I begrudgingly paid him £10. Steve, the guy who worked voluntarily, and Jerry, the guy who extracted £10 from me, both go down to the same restaurant. Let's call it Tom, which is a famous restaurant in Manchester. Very good shawarmas. So they go there and they use their £10 to both buy exactly the same shawarma. So they've got a handbag laffa and then a hummus and TCP, and they put on, I don't know, like bit of like spicy chili and put on the lamb and wrap it up, wrap it in tin foil. They give imagine it's exactly the same weight of meat, right? Both of them have got exactly, it's a £10 shawarma, you know what I mean? So with all the trimmings. So they got their shawarma wrapped. They both sit outside, and they're both about to bite it, and a bunch of youths with hoods on their backs say, ah! And they steal their shawarmas right out of their hands. Both of them, they're like, ah! And boom, that's it. They're running down there, they're cycling, and they steal their shawarmas. Let's talk about how Steve and Jerry feel. Steve, who got the £10 as a gratis favour from me, as an act of charity, feels he was quite looking forward to that shawarma, but you know what? Easy come, easy go. Son of it, what can you do? You know what? It was a free shawarma as far as I'm concerned. Jerry had to work for an hour stuffing envelopes, and then his boss wouldn't pay him. Then he had to take it to Basting to get the money extracted. That's his £10! And when those yobs stole his shawarma, he feels that much more acutely. That was my food! I've worked for that. End of analogy. Bring it back. If you work for something and you get wages for it, you don't feel the least bit bad. Right, probably not even paying you enough. If you do voluntary work and you get paid for it, what do you think? Is it really voluntary? I mean, right? You doing it voluntarily. Says the Gemara, who gets more reward in heaven doing an act? A volunteer in an old age home, or someone that works there? Answer, someone that works there. Why? They've got to go to horror, an evil inclination, just take a cigarette, right? Busy, I don't want to be there. Volunteers, what's it? Volunteers don't get as much money in heaven as workers. That's a really important point. Volunteers are so good at the natural. No, they're fulfilling their own needs. A worker now has to fight against the concept of being a decent worker. What I want to do is a worker, not a volunteer. He doesn't want any voluntary mitzvah observance. He's not interested. A mitzvah is a commandment, not a suggestion. Moses didn't come down from the mountain with 10 suggestions. He came down with 10 commandments. Get it done. Why is that important? Answer. The money that I give someone who worked for me is really theirs. The money I give as a charitable dole-out to a volunteer was an act of largesse from me. The feel of that money is different. You don't feel as if money that's been charitably doled out to you is quite the same as money that's been given by wage. The word for what we get in the next one is called schar, often mistranslated as reward or gift. It's not a dollar. It's not as if you're hunting down, you work for it. It's wages. Schar is wages. God has wages for you. You work for it. Now you have to pay it. Why is that important? He wants you to feel completely, absolutely in ownership and mastery over what he's going to give you. Because that's the most perfect way to do it. You feel as if it's really yours that way. I always get this question. Why didn't God make it in such a way that I would feel as if I'm going to do it without having to do it? I get that the whole time. Here's the answer. God's not a liar. And you're not going to get close to God through lies or falsehood. You want it, you work for it. If it's really yours, it's really yours. Why? Because God's really real. You can't get close to truth through falsehood. 2 plus 2, you don't answer through false methods. You can bump into the number 2 as an accident. You won't know it's real. You want to align yourself with truth, you have to utilize true methods. If you really want to get the ultimate reward that God has set aside for you, it has to be ultimately earned, so you feel completely and ultimately in control. It's my money! In fact, if God wouldn't pay you, you should sue him, take him to basting. I don't want to fill in for anyone else. Why should I put on flatteries everywhere and put these things on my head? Why would anyone do that? I'm doing it because, you know what? I decided, well, you have to pay me. I'm only doing it because you pay. That's a brilliant start. A brilliant start, because you realise you've earned it and it's yours by rights. You told me to do this, I expect money. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. That means when I give you the money, you don't feel the least bit bad about it. But if I just awarded you the money, because you worked voluntarily, you would feel maybe 0.001% bad about it. That means it's imperfect. It's not a perfect giving. And if it's not a perfect giving, it's not the best God could do. And if it's not the best God could do, he doesn't do it. Because he's perfect. So really, he has no option when he's dealing with a creature which is like us. He's not. We're imperfect. We need to feel certain things about things. He knows that. He designed us. Why didn't he design us in a way that we wouldn't feel about it? Because then we wouldn't really be getting the ultimate reward. Angels don't get the ultimate reward. We do. Because they're getting doled out the whole time. They don't feel the least bit bad about it, but they know it's not as good as bad as if we work for ourselves when we get wages. How would we feel as if we're working? What is work? Struggle with evil. We've got to overcome something. I'm bored. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I couldn't be bothered. I'm not particularly interested. That's where the money is. The money's there. You prove your loyalty and allegiance, which is the only thing you've got to trade with God, when you do something when you don't have to. There are plenty of people who don't keep Shabbos. Plenty of people who don't put on tefillin. That means the ones that do are very rewardable indeed. Think about it. As someone said to me, if God doesn't like theft, he wouldn't have invented the concept of chattels. It's a stupid thing. If God doesn't like theft and he wants to legislate for it, he has to allow theft to exist. Otherwise there'd be no reward for someone that overcame it. He only made the concept of sins and mitzvahs, sins and commandments, because you can do both. Things like breathing and respiring, there's no reward for. You're not going to get rewarded for your inhalations, right? Unless you do it for a mitzvah. Yeah? Why? Because that's a natural thing. It's just the way it is. I'm not rewarded for that. You're going to get rewarded for digesting your food. Well done, good peristalsis. Excellent release of hydrochloric acid there. I'm going to pay you. Ridiculous. You only get rewarded for stuff that you can feel and show that you worked for. Because then it's really yours, right? You could sue them for it. So you won't be like, how can you prove that you worked for it? I stuffed the envelopes. I put the envelopes in. There's 1,000 envelopes. Often I did it. I'm really fast. Fantastic. Well, I've got product. What's the product? You overcame something. What did you have to overcome? Something that gets in the way. Something that gets in the way, in Hebrew we call ra. Ra, resh ayin, is evil. Evil means distance from God. Trying means closest to God. God had to now increase the idea, invent the idea of evil, to give you the ability to say, I've overcome it. I could be bothered. I'm too tired. I'm too hungry. Great. You're going to do it anyway? Yeah, I owe you. The more hungry, the more tired, the more could be bothered, and you still do it, the more money he'll give you. Because there's a greater reward. You have to overcome more evil. He's paying you for the evil you overcome. Evil is just something in the way, an impediment for you to overcome. It's like a hurdle to jump over to prove you get the medal. You can't just get a guy that stands on the blocks. Boom! Stunning guy goes off. He just stands there. I know I'm faster than these guys, and I can jump over the hurdles, give me the gold medal. So run faster, jump over the hurdles and get there first, and then you get the gold. This is it. You've got to show us. You've got to put your money where your mouth is. And it's not about, oh yeah, but God knows what it's doing. God is outside of time. You're doing everything now for him. You don't experience it like that. He does. Prove yourself. Prove yourself to you. So you know when you get the money, it's your money. Those are the problems, the logistical problems God's got, as it were, that he has to overcome when giving if he's good to another. It's all an intro. Have it in mind. Let's see inside, make sure I'm not making this up. Point 2, page 39. God's wisdom decreed that for, highlight or underline, such goods to be perfect, the one enjoying it must be its master. Stop highlighting. Cross-reference, see page 103.7. Make a note, see page 103.7. Carrying on. He must be the one, this recipient, must be the one who's earned it for himself. And not one given it accidentally or by chance. God, by the way, is not an accident, and he's not by chance, as we discussed in the first. The concept of an accident presupposes a will anyway. We just didn't get it right. So who was the will before? God's not an accident. And he's not by chance. It's not a fluke. Okay? Red blood cells aren't designed like that by fluke. They're designed because they have to hold certain gases, and that's the perfect shape for them. It's not a fluke. Otherwise we'd see all different kinds of red blood cells just accidentally popping up over the eons, and we don't. Interesting idea. But why do they have a nucleus? To make room for the gas. Why do we have to invent marrow to make them? Why would we do that? Because I don't want to take up any extra space, because I need maximum. So there's a purpose. They're there for gas transportation. Why do I need to transport that? Because I need nutrients and things for cells. So why do I structure? Obviously. God's not by chance. The system isn't by chance. Your money can't be by chance. Because if it is, it ain't yours. Even if you win the lottery, it's not by chance. You filled in a ticket. Then you have, the system of winning. You can't just win by chance by not filling in a ticket. No chance. It was an accident. One sees that this arrangement is possibly reminiscent of the perfection of God himself. At least to the degree that it is impossible. Because God's perfection is not a matter of chance either. If it was, it wouldn't be perfect. Perfection can't be an outcome of chance, because it might not happen. If it might not happen, it'll be imperfect. The fact it might not happen isn't imperfection. So you don't have utter perfection then. God, however, is the one true perfection, being imperatively perfect. The blue-orange needs him. He doesn't need the blue-orange. Necessarily devoid of fault. This tray, in truth, is only God's. For no other being, or creation, or anything that exists, is perfect by necessity. That's really important. And devoid of fault by nature. Everything has a fault. It needed to be created, not God. He didn't undergo creation. He just is. Back in time, go back to the first two there. Maybe three. Still, in order for a created being to come to resemble God to some degree, which is this level of closeness, aligning, calibration, it is necessary that it, whatever this creature is, at least earn the perfection that is not an imperative part of its being. If I brilliantly do peristalsis, or pump my blood around my body, I'm not going to get reward for that. That's just a part of my being. It just works. I don't do anything with it. I don't grow my toenails. I can't come out tonight. I've got to grow my toenails. Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, no, you've got to do that. Yeah. All that keratin and stuff, got my protein. Nothing like that. You're not going to get rewarded for that. What is reward? You're not going to get paid for that. What you're going to get paid for is work you've done. What's work? Struggle at overcoming something which was not part of your nature. And it was to avoid the deficiency that is not precluded by its own nature. I'm never going to get asked by God, how come you didn't see what was going on in the next wall with your X-ray vision? The answer is, I don't have X-ray vision. So therefore I'm not culpable for things that I didn't know about or didn't see. But fuck, shut up. That's okay. I've got my own limitations, and he'll work with me within the limitations he set up for me. That's fine. God therefore decreed and arranged that creation contained elements of both perfection, read good, and deficiency, read evil, as well as a creature with equal access to both, not an angel and not an animal. This creature would then be given the means, the ability to both acquire perfection, which isn't part of itself, and avoid deficiency, which isn't part of itself. That's where the real money's made. And it could do that for itself by clinging to the elements of perfection, by saying, right, that's a good thing. I'm going to do acts of loving kindness. I'm going to do that, which is a good thing, generally. Then, but I'm bored and I'm tired and I don't know, the person I want to do it with is smelly. And I don't want to be near them. Well, then that's where the money is. If it was easy, then you're going to get less paid. If it's harder, your wages go up incommensurate with the difficulty of the job, right? By clinging to the elements of perfection, this unique creature, whatever it is, would make itself resemble the Creator, at least to the degree that is possible for it. Because the more you align yourself with the Creator, the more you'll like Him. He does acts of loving kindness, which is why doing them is said to be a good thing. Doing them is said to be a thing which aligns you with God. We dub that as good. Being cruel and mean, which is not what God does, disaligns you with God, therefore is said to be quote-unquote evil. We're thinking very much in Christian terms, good and evil. Delete that. Think more of Torah and rebuild the structures. We said in the beginning, the concept of learn to believe, Christian or secular way to think about it versus Jewish way to think. You have to start thinking of the Torah's viewpoint here. Torah's giving you, the definitions of how this works. As a consequence, it, whatever this creature is, becomes worthy to be drawn close to God because it has earned that right by struggling with something external to itself, to derive pleasure from God's goodness, fulfilling the purpose of creation, which we said on page 37.1 was to bestow His good, God Himself, to another creature, to a being, other than Himself. So we aren't all bits of God. Because if we are, then the whole purpose of creation is null. It's got to be something separate from Him, that He wishes to give an opportunity to that to align themselves with Him. Because that's the best thing He can give. And He wants to give something, and it's got to be the best He can give. The only thing He can give is Him. Anything else would be a limited good, right? Don't get paid for your good deeds in this world with money. It's really bad. That's very limited. It will dry up, and you'll be gone. I don't know, just spend it on holiday. That's it. God Himself is perfect and infinite. If you attach yourself to Him, that just keeps maturing. It's just phenomenal. All right, work point 3. By means of acquiring perfection, this creature, he hasn't named what the creature is, becomes fit to cleave to its Creator simply because, highlight or underline, through acquiring perfection, or access to what this perfection is, this godliness, this creature has, in a certain respect, begun to quote-unquote resemble its Creator. It's doing so much more that it's looking like it's doing what God would do in that situation, as much as this creature could do for it. Obviously, it's a limited system. You're never going to become God. That's impossible. Moreover, by incorporating elements of perfection into itself, it cleaves to the Creator's perfection and is drawn to Him continuously until, ultimately, its earning of perfection and its bonding in closeness with Him are one matter. He's so close to Hashem, he's so like Him, that it's going to snowball. Because the more loving kindness you operate and you do, the more you're willing and likely to do more. And the more you do, the more you're willing to do, and the more you do, the more you're willing to. It just starts snowballing. The more you start calibrating with God, the more it's going to line up better for you. Okay, let's explain why that is. This is so because God Himself is the only true perfection. This is important. And perfection, stroke good, must therefore be associated with Him directly. It is good because God does that, and God is good. If God would blow up casinos, then it would be good to do that. If God doesn't blow up casinos, then it would be good not to do that. Whatever He is what we term good. Whatever He isn't is what we term rough. So if you're doing something good, it means you're aligning yourself to His behavioural patterns, His character traits, His manifestations. You know what I'm saying? That's what most we can do. Is really following His footsteps, as it were. Like you can't be Him. You have a physical body. What do you want to do? Therefore, even though the root of perfection, God Himself, cannot be obtained, you're not going to become God. all true perfection is ultimately derived and transmitted from you. The closest you can get is by doing these things which get you online. That's what's on offer here. That's the ultimate good available for you in this creation. If we understand that God alone is the true perfection, it follows that in nature and in creations, highlight or underline key words, every fault is merely the absence of his good and the concealment of his presence. We define Ra as distance from God. We define tithe as closeness to God. The more rough something is said to be, the more distance or miscalibrated it is. The more good it is, the closer it is. A little bit of good. You might have a big mitzvah, a little bit, that's a big mitzvah if you do that. What does that mean? That means it will calibrate you in a large manner towards God consciousness. That's a terrible avera, that's a terrible sin. It means it'll really miscalibrate. A little one little thing. It depends. We all measure it on calibration levels. The Torah's mitzvahs are weighted and are measured as to how much they put you in line with or disalign you from God's presence. That's how we judge the grandeur of a mitzvah. The reward is commensurate to that. The more you've aligned, the more reward the more God consciousness, the more godliness you will be able to accept. Now, because you make a note, also see three references. Page 71, page 175, and page 309 on that highlight point. Okay, that's 71, 175, and 109. Okay, let's carry on. Couple of minutes. That is closeness to God and illumination from his presence is the root and cause of every perfection of his. Because he is the perfection, right? Listen to me. Cold is the absence of heat. Darkness is the absence of light. That means cold and darkness aren't their own things. When you turn off the lights in this room, there's not a bloke that comes with a bucket with a shovel, chucking in, blobs of dark. Everywhere just going. And that's how it gets dark, because otherwise the photons keep bouncing around. If you stop putting in energy to the lights, which are shooting out photons, the photons don't illuminate anymore. They shine and they die. You know what I'm saying? Cold. And if you don't heat up water, then its state is said to be cooler or cold because of a lack of energy going in. Evil is a lack of good energy. A situation where you're not aligning with godliness is automatically and axiomatically a definition of evil. Just like if you're not putting energy into a kettle, then the water remains cold. You have to put energy in to make it hot. You have to put energy in to make it light. You have to put energy in to make it good. That's why mitzvahs don't come to you unless you work for them. But evil, if you lock yourself in a cell, evil will come to you. No mitzvahs will. You have to work for them. That's how this works. You have to put energy in. So the degree of deficiency depends on the degree of concealment. We did this before. Imagine having a graph with a light doing that, where there's godliness going up and evil going that way. Then the more godliness, the less evil there is. The less godliness, the more evil there is, right? It's inversely proportional. The more evil something is, the less good it is. The more good it is, the less evil it is. It's very straight. The more dark something is, the less light it is. The more hot something is, the less cold it is. Okay, there we go. There he's going to start mentioning elsewhere. There is a unique creature, which is the blue-orange of this creation, which stands balanced between the elements of perfection and elements of deficiency, which means it is neither of them. It's parava. It's neutral. It ain't fleshy, it ain't milky. It ain't meaty, it ain't milky. It's a brand new pot. And it could put meat in the pot, or it could put milk in the pot. But at the moment, it's a parava pot. It's never been used. It's brand new. We're talking about the first creature, okay? The first iteration of that creature. So let's do that again. There is a unique creature which stands balanced between the elements of perfection and the elements of deficiency, which in turn are the result of God's illumination or concealment, good or evil. When this creature strengthens himself, striving for elements of perfection, incorporating them into his being by doing them. When you do chesed, you become a Baal chesed, a master of chesed. If you do tzedakah, charity, you become a Baal tzedakah, a master of charity, to the extent that you did it. Putting 10p in a coin when someone's chugging in the street, that's your level of mastership. Giving 10% of all your income, that's another level of mastership, which is higher. When this creature strengthens himself, striving for elements of perfection incorporated into his being, this is, in a way, a means of clinging to God, as he is their root and their source. I'm being charitable, just like God is. The more elements of perfection this creature incorporates into himself, the stronger will be his association and bond to God. No wonder he gave the 613 opportunity. More the merrier. If I only had one, it would be very difficult. And different people focus on different things in life, you know what I mean? He varied it, so different people have different ways in. There's hundreds of ways to do these alignments. He becomes, so to speak, attached to God himself, deriving both pleasure and perfection from his goodness, while he himself is the master of this good, because he earns it, its wages and perfection, having acquired them by choosing them. You've got a problem with the fact that I got so much wealth? Go check out my file, it's on my report. I did it. What do you want to do? I got paid. I worked harder and I got paid more. I'll tell you. It's an economics thing. We're going to finish off this chapter next time with points 4 and 5. And then we are going to enter the concept of this creature that God has been, or I'm kind of talking about that God made, that was a perfect design to be able to associate itself with God, or remove itself from God of its own volition, because it's got to work for itself. Unlike other things, leaves aren't rewardable, because they don't work for themselves, they just run the leaf program. Tigers do the same, so do angels. It's like robot programs, that's what they do. The sun burns. You're not going to pay the sun for just burning. Well done, you burned well. Well, he could have not done that. He could have gone to, somewhere on holiday. It doesn't work like that. You can make a choice. You don't have to do this. You should. You're commanded to. You don't want to do it. Like a shot, deal with that. Don't expect God to have to reward you for transgressing what he's telling you to do. Expect punishment. That's how this works. If a guy doesn't turn up for work and he's been told to be there at 9 o'clock, expect to be called in by the boss. What do you think is going to happen? Do expect to be paid at the end of the month if you're doing what you're doing. This isn't about physical success anymore. Well, I'm still breathing, I'm still walking, and I'm still eating burgers, and nothing's happened to me that I don't keep the Sabbath. No. But I've got news for you. You're here at work. When work ends, you've got a problem. It's a real deal. There are ramifications. You've been hired for purpose. We'll go on to who this creature is and why next time. Looking forward to seeing you then.